This is the I'm Possible Project show, where we interview real people who have achieved incredible feats in the face of overwhelming odds, showing that impossible is just a state of mind and that anything is possible. I'm your host, Joshua Rivedal. Today, in episode 33, Chasing Butterflies, I talk to Nate Crawford. Let's jump right in.
Nate is the executive director of Here as in right here, and here as in listen here. So Here, a nonprofit that works to give hope to those who live with mental illness as well as their loved ones, and he's a regular contributor to the Mighty and blogs at www.herehere.org. Nate, man, it's good to have you on board and good to have you on the interview today, and it's really nice to hear your voice for the first time.
I know we've been communicating for a while through the books and email and stuff, and so I'm really excited to be here and to talk and stuff. This is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it.
Me too, brother. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and thanks. Like, I always forget this, but like, thank you for having me on and for the book and stuff. Like, I've been reading through the book kind of slowly, meditatively, and like, there's some great stuff in there. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in there. There's lots and lots of great stuff in there. And it's not just like little nuggets. It's like, like these huge boulders. And so like, it's been a great experience. And so I'm just really happy to be part of, I'm Possible.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to have you on board. I think you and I connect on a few different levels, and listeners, the book that Nate's talking about, of course, is not of course, but it's our second I'm Possible book, Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible. September 6th today was a recording, so it's been out from 2017. So it's been out for a couple of weeks, and it's cooking along, and it's been really interesting to kind of connect with you and all the authors, and some, like I said, and like you said, I haven't been able to really connect in person or on the phone, and we're finally get to do this, so this is really, really cool. The little bio that I read, you wrote that you have a lot going on. I've read your story, which is brilliant, by the way. I really loved it, and I feel like that's how we connect. But you're more than all that stuff. So, Nate, would you mind, for my benefit and for our listeners, would you mind just giving us a little background in your life, where you've been, where you're going, the Nate Crawford experience?
The Nate Crawford experience kind of sounds like, here's another thing. I play a lot of music, and so it sounds like the Jimi Hendrix experience, and that's right. I want to be nowhere in that. Like, I love Hendrix, but like, that's on an echelon that I can never touch. So yeah, I play bass, one thing I do, and then I have three sons, and they take up a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. And one will turn 11 in a couple weeks, and then they're 7 and 5. So they're young guys. And actually, when I wrote when you got a hold of me and about writing the piece, I knew exactly what I was going to write about, because we live on this big farm and we chase butterflies all over the place. And that was just something that the four of us did, and my wife would watch us. And so I wrote about like that, and in relation to my mental illness and stuff. So mental illness is another thing that takes up a big part of my life. I have bipolar 2 with an anxiety disorder. So that takes up a lot, and we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. So see what else. Background, I've got an interesting fashion. I have a PhD in theology, in philosophy of religion. So I've done a whole bunch of, I've done the whole academic thing. I edited books, I wrote articles and stuff. And I just for a little while, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I still teach a little bit online, but I don't, it's just not my scene. And honestly, being bipolar didn't really work real well with that scene. Being manic in that is just not going to roll. You can't walk into a classroom and start, just being that, or even depressed for that matter. So I did that. I still get asked to write some articles for that kind of stuff every once in a while, and I usually turn them down. And just because it's just not where I'm at. But yeah, so play music, play with my kids. I hang out with my wife. I have friends around, that we just kind of sit and chill and talk, and that's about what I do. I live in northern Indiana, so it gets hot in the summer, not real hot, but kind of hot, and it gets cold in the winter. And we're actually in what's called a lake effect area. So in like 2 months, we will have gobs of snow. So which is totally different than California. Yeah. So that's going to be fun. But that's just kind of life, and it's where we ended up. We lived in Chicago for a little bit. We lived in Kentucky, so we're here. My family's here. My wife's family is here, and that's really nice, because we have a pretty good, strong support system. And my boys we have free babysitting, which is a huge help for us.
Definitely, man. I got a couple of young teenagers at home myself. I know how key that free babysitting can be.
Yeah.
And sometimes you love the kids, they're amazing, but sometimes you just need a little separation, a little time away, which is also good.
Yeah.
Hands full with 3 boys. My goodness, that sounds really rewarding and really challenging and really like rough and tumble fun.
Yeah, and our house is just a constant wrestling match. I mean, it's just kind of what it is. Like, I'll
your
sit
poor
on the couch,
wife, man.
yeah. She just kind of like, everyone knows that she is off limits. Like, there's nothing happens to her, but like everything else is just, it's funny. So and 2 of my kids are starting to pick up music, and so I've been playing. One's picking up the guitar, one's picking up the piano, so I've been playing with them, and like, you know, it's just been really, it's different because they're growing up, and so my life is changing, and I'm the one that stayed home with them. So like, I did my PhD. And I stayed home with the kids, and so like, it's a little bit like they're all in school now, and so during the day I'm not quite sure what to do at times. So.
Wow, man. Well, let's rewind a bit. Where'd the music come from? How did you start playing bass? What's going down with that? Because I'm a music guy. I've been singing for a bunch of years. I'm not doing so much anymore, but I did it professionally, wrote some music. But enough about me. I just really connect to music. So I'm curious about your bass and how you been, what that does for you and all that, man. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I was in college, and I was trying to play guitar, and I just wasn't very good. Like, I was always the worst guitar player. And then somebody was like, "Well, you know the notes. Why don't you just here, you play the bass?" And I was like, "Okay." And as soon as I picked up the bass, I locked in with the bass drum and the drums, and I was like, "I like this. I like this groove. This feels right." And so, that band, we never played any shows, never went anywhere, but I just kind of picked up the bass, and then I just kind of fell in love with it. And I've always had a guitar around, so I still strum some chords and that kind of stuff, but I'm not a guitarist. I'm a bass player that can, do the chords. And then, and as I've gotten older, I've played in different groups of varying, like I play in bar bands that just kind of hang out around here. And we played, I was in a band that played like top 40 stuff, and I wasn't a real big fan of that. People reacted well to it and stuff. But then I played in a funk band, which was a lot of fun. So we were playing like James Brown, George Clinton, and that was like, as a bass player, I was just in heaven. What else did we play? Stevie Wonder, and
that's fun.
Tried to play some Prince and Michael Jackson. Great. Yeah. So and then and since then, I've just I'll play with some friends here and there, sit in with them, play with a guy that we do some ambient type stuff and just those kinds of things. Nothing too major. I just like to sit down and play, and I never played music to like get famous. I kind of had that. I knew I wasn't that good, but I liked having fun and that kind of stuff. So I got a nice 5-string bass and a nice amp that I play through, and I can control my tones and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. And it's really like during the day, sit down, play my bass, and just kind of fall into that groove, and things feel a little bit more right at that point.
We'll come back to that. There's something in there I think I want to pull out, but even before we get to kind of the theme of the show, what's up with the theology piece? I mean, that to me is really interesting as well. I grew up in, I think in my world, in my head, it was very an oppressive religious environment. However, theology I found very, very interesting, whether it's biblical or the Torah or the Quran or kind of a variety of different cultures and theologies and dogmas and stuff. I just find it really, really fascinating, kind of on a sociological level. But what's up with that for you, man? And what was like the impetus, and what did you want to do with it?
Well, I honestly, so when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a pastor, and I didn't grow up. My family is not like a real religious family. In fact, we're not really a religious family at all. But I found my way into a church at one point, and that's actually where I started playing music. And I kind of found a home there. And then I got into college, and so I thought, I'll go and I'll be a pastor. Like, I'm kind of good at organizing and putting stuff together, and kind of getting people to roll and stuff. And then as I got into college, man, the more questions, I just had more and more and more questions. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll go to grad school and see if I can figure some of this stuff out. And I tell people, basically my PhD was me having questions and nobody having the answers to those questions. So in college, it was more narrow. I was doing almost all evangelical Christianity. And then I guess I got into grad school, I was doing more stuff with Catholicism and some of the black theologies and women theologies and stuff. And then my dissertation was actually on the idea that religious thinking is like a improvisation. So what you do when you think religiously is you pull from all these different sources, all these different places, and you kind of put it together, and as you think about it, and as you and not thinking as in just in your head, but even guttural reactions. what comes out is kind of this amalgamation. It's like an improvisation. It's like what, Jerry Garcia does or Miles Davis or John Coltrane or something. And so that was what I was doing. And so I was reading, there's a Jewish thinker, and I can't remember his name now, and I knew I'd forget it, who wrote a book called Sacred Attunement that totally changed everything that he was from the University of Chicago. And it was like the idea that the impetus of religion isn't to like get things right. It's to like connect with other people and like just connect with the other and like this attuning idea. And so like connecting with other people, connecting with God or the deity or whatever, that was what became more and more like I wanted to see how people did that. And so that's kind of what I've studied, like religious experience and that kind of stuff. Just because I've had some real religious experiences, and I've also had some experiences that were like, man, religion sucks. Sometimes it feels like those come a little more frequently. But that's kind of what I did and stuff. And so, yeah, my dissertation was me trying to find answers and never finding any, and then finding out that that's okay, I guess. So
interesting. I'm looking up religion as we're talking, and it like there's just so much like existential stuff going on there, and why we ascribe to that, and what why we're trying to make sense of the world, but then you're talking about the improv piece, and then you're talking about connection, and so yeah, but I'm not there yet. I'm actually a little bit more curious, kind of about you mentioned at the top, your mental illness and your bipolar, and in the book you mentioned anxiety, and then you talked a little bit about your youth as well, and we're not a religious family or whatever. And so what did childhood kind of look like? Did you know about the mental illnesses at that point? When did this stuff come about? And let's start there. When did this stuff come about? And how was it manifesting itself in your childhood?
So I had my first anxiety attack at 7 years old that I can remember. I was in my elementary school, and they put all of us, and we didn't have air conditioning, and so it was like super hot, and there were 3 first grade classes, and they put all of us into one classroom, and I was in there, and I started hyperventilating and throwing up, and no one had any idea. Everyone just thought that I had the flu, because the way that my anxiety attacks manifest is I almost always throw up. And then I dry heave for like 20 minutes. It's a fun experience. And then, it's just one of those things. And my counselor and I have talked a lot about like just kind of like letting it roll. Like if I don't fight it, you'll get through it. It goes away. And so but it's hard to do that in the middle of an attack. Anyway, so at 7 years old, I had my first anxiety attack, and I had probably 1 or 2 a year since then. But no one had any idea what it was. It wasn't like, I'm 37 years old in 1987. It wasn't real prevalent. Bipolar disorder didn't come into parlance until 1980. So, these things just weren't real talked about. And then I grew up in a rural Indiana town. So it wasn't like we were running around with, but I don't even know if we had a psychiatrist in town or anything like that. And if you did, like, it was only like the quote unquote crazy people, like the real problems that went there. So, but when I was about 11 years old, I started to have suicidal thoughts, ideation. Now, I had thoughts of like, I'd be better off dead, or like everyone else would be better off without me, those kinds of things. But they kind of transformed when I was 11 and 12 into more like serious thoughts about like how I would hurt myself and like what I would do and those kinds of things. And my parents, they did as well as they could have. Like they weren't, they tried, like they took me to the doctor a couple of times as a kid, and my mom was like, just something's not right. And the doctor was like, he's fine. You got to settle down, like he's just a little uptight, those kinds of things. These things aren't that important. So that's what they did. And, they kind of took that at face value. Like they weren't convinced that the doctor was right, but they're like, what do we, the doctor's saying he's okay, the pediatrician and stuff. And then, when I was like 16, I think, or 17, I think I was 17. They made me go. I was about to turn 17. They made me go to this counselor, and this counselor just was like, he's like, oh, he's fine. He's just a moody teenager. And like you look back at it now and you think it's funny because being moody is the very definition of being bipolar. But this guy just didn't get it. And so my parents are just kind of like, like he just must be a moody teenager, just going through some stuff, and that's kind of the way it is. When I got to college, my first, like, as I was going to college, I was telling my parents, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want to go. I changed my mind. I want to stay home. I don't want any part of this. And they were kind of like, you're going to college. And I was like, okay. So I went, and as I was there, I spent the entire probably first semester in a mixed state. So a mixed state, so the bipolar. So by the time that I was 19, as I look back at it now, like I was definitely like full blown bipolar. The problem was that I never got the help that I needed. I went to it. So at my first semester of college, it was in a mixed state, and a mixed state is where you're basically like hypomanic and depressed at the same time, and which means that like you just are all over the place. You're kind of living these 2 or 3 lives almost, and at the same time, and like everything's just laid on top of each other. And so I wasn't sleeping. I was super depressed. I had terrible suicidal thoughts, but I had like tons of energy at times, and I had, like I didn't fit the mold. And so I came home. I had to have surgery, a minor surgery. I had to have a gallbladder out because I had wrecked that. And then I went back to school, and I finally went to see a counselor, and he was like I started telling him what's going on in my head. And the school that I went to, for some reason, they didn't refer me to a psychiatrist or like a psychological counselor. They referred me to a career counselor, and like his eyes got like, they look like saucers, like UFOs, like just huge and bright. And he had no idea what he was getting into. They put me on some meds, and putting me on some meds, it seemed to help a little bit with my mood. He sent me to the nurse practitioner in the health center, and she put me on antidepressants, except I was bipolar. So the antidepressants didn't help at all because they just make you manic, except we came to be known later is that I don't actually metabolize a whole host of SSRIs. So anyway, my first year of school was just bouncing all over the place mood-wise. And I worked at this camp outside, and I was bouncing all over the place mood-wise as I worked at the camp that summer. And I went back to school, and I was like, I just can't do this. I'm not, like, I went and talked to the doctor, and I was like, I'm not taking any more of these. Like, it's not helping. But I had like kind of settled into, like, I kind of knew the pattern. And so I knew that when I felt okay, like I could get an ungodly amount of work done. And when I didn't feel okay, I didn't have to do anything. So because I was getting so much work done, and I was so fun and energetic and stuff when I was good, but it was just that, it might be like 2 weeks good and 1 week bad, and then like 2 weeks bad and 1 week good, and that kind of stuff. There was never like a real strong in between. Fast forward, my wife and I get married, go to grad school, everything's fine. We move to Chicago, everything's good. We have our first son. And then when I was about 28, I went back. I was just feeling really down. The depression began to become crippling almost. And she just said, you're really depressed. And I said, I can feel that. And we were about to have my second child, and I thought, well, I'll go back. And they put me on an SSRI, and I kept going back to my family doctor and saying, hey, this isn't working. And they just kept upping the dosage. And now that I know some of the literature, I know that that's just asinine. But that's what they did. And I actually saw 2 different doctors because one left, and I thought he was an idiot. Yeah, I'm sure know-it-all PhD, like the MD is an idiot. Anyway, that happened. And then eventually we had my third son. And after we had my third son, like the wheels just kind of fell off for me. And he was like 3 months old, and my wife just said, I can't live with you anymore. So I said, I'll go to a counselor. And she said, okay, if you go to a counselor, like we'll work this out and stuff. And I went to a counselor, and he was like, you are beyond sick. Like what you're describing here is like a serious mental illness. You need to go to a psychiatrist today. So then I spent 6 weeks fighting with my doctor to get me to a psychiatrist. It actually took my wife. My wife does human resources, and so she told them that she knew a lawyer and that we were going to sue them because they wouldn't give us because my insurance would not allow me to go see a psychiatrist unless my doctor gave permission or like a recommendation or whatever. And they just wouldn't do it. And she finally said, I'm going to sue you. And they said, fine, if you think you need it, go ahead. And she said, we're not going to be patients here anymore. We just need this. You guys are awful. And so anyway, I saw a psychiatrist, and she was like, wow, you're lucky to be alive. Everything you've been doing is wrong. Everything everybody's been doing for you is wrong. Let's start over again. And so I saw her, 3 or 4 times in 6 weeks. And I took a genetic testing thing, and we realized that the meds I had been taking, they didn't work. And so there's a whole host of anxiety medication that I can't even take. There's a whole host of antidepressants I can't take. I just don't metabolize it for whatever reason. And actually my cousin has an anxiety disorder, and he also, it doesn't work on him either. So I was 31 at that point, and they got me on my stuff, and it worked out. And I feel good. I still go to my counseling, get my meds, do the things I need to, exercise, and I'm supposed to eat right, but that just hasn't happened real well. So I don't know.
Fair enough.
And that kind of stuff. So, I mean, those are the things and spend time with my kids, walking around, have a dog, those kinds of, people having things around so that, that are reliant upon me, so that I'm not, just sitting there by myself and going, no one needs me or anything like that. At the very least, the dog has to go for a walk, So that's what kind of works.
Really?
So that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on the upswing.
Yes. It sounds like it. So much going on there. And going back to you as a kid, man, you're dealing with this, but not knowing how. The folks are trying the best that they can, which many of us are doing the best we can with the information that we have. How are you interacting with the people around you? Was that a good experience for you? Did you feel left out? Because that's got to have a huge effect on a child. I mean, you already kind of intrinsically know you're a little bit different, but there's no context for that, right? So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I did originally ask about how it manifests in your childhood. I wasn't prepared to ask this specific question, but what did that look like in your youth? The kids around you, teachers, what did that look like for you as a young person?
Well, number one is I'm really smart. So and I don't do this to toot my own horn. I'm intelligent. And so I can basically get through school without doing anything. I got A's and B's and did very little to earn those A's and B's. It was really, I look back at it now and I pushed my kids to do work because I didn't learn how to do any work until I got to college, or at least not any, I had my own stuff. So no one questioned me because I wasn't in trouble and because I was a good student. So no one had any sort of well, he's a problem, he's the problem kid. So that kind of stuff. I did always feel a little bit, and I still so I live in the town where I grew up, and I still feel like this isn't home. It is, but it's not. It's a good place for my kids. It's a good place for my wife, but it's never been home for me. And that was true when I was 13, and that's true when I'm 37. So, and we do things to try and make it like that, but it's just not. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. And Trisha, my wife Trisha, she calls it the show. You just put on the show, and everyone knows, and no one has any idea. And I just learned how to do that. I learned how to go to school and make friends, and what I was supposed to do. And the other thing was everyone was telling me as these things were manifesting, everyone else was saying their hormones were going crazy, and so I kind of thought this is just part of what it means to be a teenager and stuff. I thought I really thought that having these suicidal thoughts and very vivid suicidal thoughts, everybody was having them. And I learned later that no one was having them. I was the only one having them, and that was part of the issue. So that's one of the things we talk about here a lot is if you're having these thoughts, it's not normal. So that's kind of, but I had really good friends, and I had really good, people I still talked with today, and and those kinds of things. It was never, so it was never weird, but it was never home. I was never comfortable. It was never home. I felt more comfortable in other places. Definitely.
Yeah. I was very curious about your social interaction. I think that was the main, more so than school, but real quick, man, or whatever, not real quick, could be whatever. What's that about, man? What's the this doesn't feel like home, but it feels awkward, and I got to put on the show. I feel like that where I live a little bit. I live in a very snooty part of the world, and sometimes I got to put on the show. But what is that for you, man?
Well, I was always I like to read books. I like to read weird books, or not weird books, but I wasn't reading science fiction and stuff, but I was reading Catcher in the Rye, and I'm trying to think what else I was reading in high school. And then I was reading philosophy in high school and stuff like that. I remember watching all Dostoevsky, and people just being and people here are why would you do that? Well, I don't know. I'm trying to better myself. I'm trying to, that kind of stuff. But then also it just never quite. There's a lot of and I grew up here. I know the ins and outs of the community and that kind of stuff, and it just never felt like the community was okay with me being here, if that makes sense. So at 16, I think I was 16, I realized that the suicidal thoughts everyone else was not having. I told some confidants, and one was a youth pastor, And he was like, you can't say that. Don't ever say that again. Don't ever talk about that. Don't ever. And I just realized then, like, I was strange. And it reinforced the fact that I was strange and weird and not like awkward, but like I didn't fit. I was the puzzle piece that like didn't need to stick in here. And at least, and I felt like that I was kind of put in those places, I don't want to say over and over again, but it just kind of like that kind of worked its way. My parents tried really hard. And the other thing was like, my town is like a sports town. Like sports are everything. Now I love baseball and I love the Cubs, but about everything else I could like give or take. And I didn't, and the people in my high school, I knew them and I didn't like them as they played sport. Like I thought the football players, like in typical, like, you know, in typical fashion, like I thought the football players were jerks. Like they were awful people and they still are, some of them. And the basketball players were unkind and they weren't nice. And the coaches were kind of nasty people, you know? And so like, I just never felt like I should go and support them. And they were like, well, you're supporting the town. And I was like, if this is the way the town's going to operate, like, I don't want anything to do with that. And here I am. I'm back.
It's pretty damn precocious.
I thought way too much. So, and there's a thing called, what is it? A movie called something about Touched by Fire. And it's almost like you're like, and it's about bipolar people. And it almost is like your brain becomes like, it's like it's on fire, like, or like things start to light up and like, you just can't get it down. And those thoughts just race and race and race. And like, all of a sudden, you know, you're asking these questions to people and they're going, oh my God, I had no idea. Like, I don't want to talk to this kid anymore because he's just annoying. You know, like he's asking questions that we're not supposed to ask here.
Interesting. Now, so what I'm hearing a little bit is that you kind of felt disconnected from the place you grew up in, and then you're back there, and in between somehow you picked up the bass. You know, you started in on some music, and you started in on some theology, and you got into that. And there was, I think you even said there was a point of like, I wanted some connection, right?
Yeah.
What about the bass and music and theology? What did that do for you as far as finding a connection, and how do those help or hinder your management process of your mental illness right now?
Well, the theology doesn't really play a whole lot of part. It kind of does. Like, it's funny. Nobody in my town thinks, like, everyone understands that I am an expert in whatever it is, you know, in philosophy of religion. If you need something, if you had a question and came to me, like, I would have the answer. However, when it comes to actually like putting that into practice or something, like, hey, churches should do this, or like, you know, religious understanding is more like this. Like, everyone here is like, oh, you don't really know what you're talking about. I just think you're wrong. Like, I sat across from a guy, and we were talking about mental illness and religion is what we were talking about. And he was like, you know, I just don't believe that God would give people mental illness. And I said, well, then I don't know what to say to you. Like, I don't have any, I've got nothing to respond to you with, because like, that's asinine, I think is what I said. You know, because people obviously live with a mental illness, and like the reality is people have mental illness. And so if you believe that God created people, like, God did that in some sort of way. Now you may, you know, function in a way to like get around like how God did that or whatever. But if you're going to say like God created everybody, you know, then you got to deal with that. And he just wasn't going to. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine. But you realize that your religion makes no sense. And the thing is, I get tired, and I get real tired of like being kind of like dismissed because, you know, oh, he's just the professor, or he's just the whatever in my town. You know, and I didn't think we'd talk about Plymouth a whole lot, but anyway, like, it's come up. But the other thing, but the bass, though, has been a place where like I have like freedom. Like you know, I can go into and with a group of people and we just start, you know, like, hey, we're going to play in the key of G, and we're going to play 1, 3, and 7 and go. And so we know that, you know, that's what we're going to do. And so I'll hold down the bass line. The drummer's going to play what the drummer does. And then we're free in that to just kind of do what we want to do or go where we want to go. And I feel that, and I've kind of set up so that I'm playing with people that do that kind of stuff. It's funny, like, I'm only 37, but like, I feel like I'm too old to do stuff that I don't want to do anymore. Like, I just don't have the mental energy for it. So So I'm not playing, like, I'm not doing things that I don't want to do, usually on a guitar. on a bass. But the bass is, and the other thing is like it gets me. So no one in town here actually plays music like that. So I'm going to there's a place called South Bend, which is where the University of Notre Dame is. So I'll go play with people up there. I'll play in Valpo sometimes. Valparaiso University is there. Those kinds of things. And so and not just with like Valparaiso students or Notre Dame students, but like those are hubs for like arts and other things. And so there are people there, and and it's only half hour, 40 minutes away, and so you just go and play there and find your space. And I love it. Like it's a life affirming. Yeah. Anyway, so we put together stuff, and we put together musicians, and there's some open mics and jams and just those kinds of things. And it's just a lot of fun.
That's great, man. I just remember with music, but more creativity and stuff. It was a big, and it still is, but it was a big part of the recovery process I had when I was going through the darkest episode where I was actually suicidal back in 2011. So I was a little bit curious about what music does for you, but it sounds like it just contributes overall to a very healthful life for you, and it gets you out of sort of the backwardness of where you live, unfortunately.
Well, no, you were talking about creativity, like so, and I'm a terrible artist. Like I can't draw, and one of the medications I take for the bipolar makes my hand shake, my right hand shake when I'm right-handed. But I picked up like painting and like just kind of like like whatever, like throwing paint on a canvas, and like for me that has been, it's almost like otherworldly. It's a mystical experience almost every single time. Like I don't have to, like I do think about it and I work at it, but like it's just something that it's like you catch it, you're like caught into like this flow, and like you're part of that, and like you just let this stuff happen, and it's not like my paintings are good. Like it's never going to be in a museum or anything like that, but it does what you're talking about, like gives the creativity and allows you to be part of something more than just like yourself at that moment.
Yeah, that's exactly what I feel like the arts do, and it doesn't have to be produced. It doesn't have to go anywhere. It's just doing it for the sake of doing it and being part of something bigger than yourself. I mean, would you say, in a sense, that's kind of what you're doing with Here? I know you want to help other people, but being a part of something bigger than yourself, doesn't that help your mental illness as well?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Like knowing that I can sit down and blog about it or talk about something, and or like I'm putting together this talk for suicide walk that I'm doing that I'm going to be part of on Sunday. It's weird because like I still struggle. Like I still struggle. I struggle terribly and stuff like that. But people want to hear me talk about that struggle, and they want to know that they can get through it. And so here gives a really great opportunity to say that it's okay if you struggle, but like it's not okay when you want to hurt yourself, and it's not okay and there are resources available, and you need to talk to people, and you need to grab onto these things. And if you can't grab onto someone like right near you, like grab onto me and I will help you, and that makes a lot of it. I don't know if it gives meaning or betterment to like my situation, but it does make it so that I'm not flailing in the wind. It's I'm not out there all by myself, because then I start to hear stories of like, man, I had that same thing happen, or like I was in college too, and like no one knew what to do, or I've been around pastors who are jerks, or that kind of stuff, and like you start to go, like these are common themes, and we're gonna get over this. Like we're gonna do this together. Like something I say a lot is like we're all in this together. So like here gives me a lot of space to really give meaning to what I go through, and helping people is a real big thing for me. I've noticed a lot where just being able to go in. I used to run I put together it was a reading program for Spanish-speaking kids in our town. We have a large migrant population, and so I put together this reading program, and we'd play games and some other stuff. And it was just really enriching for me. And it was really enriching not only for me, like I put everything together and I was there and I just kind of oversaw it all, but it was really enriching to me to see the kids like interacting and stuff, and also see these adults and these teenagers who were having a blast doing something that they would have never done. So those kinds of things really give me a lot of hope, and they make me think that, like the world, sometimes the world seems crappy, but like the world can be a better place. And like if you put people to a task that they may, like that, it makes a better place. And here's trying to do that, So it's just trying to do it with mental illness. Like we're trying to set people, trying to set up stuff in schools and set up stuff in communities so that, like you're put to a task and you can make things better.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that works. I mean, what I've been kind of doing a little research on, and that's between this journal paper that I'm like one of several authors on, and then with this work, is that a lot of times when we're doing this work and we're telling our story and we're trying to normalize this conversation, often it has a bigger effect on us than of what we're aware of the effect that it has on the other person or people, because it keeps us grounded. It does kind of make meaning of what we've been through and what we're going through, and saying I struggle. I would imagine it kind of opens the floodgates for people to be vulnerable with you and to deepen a relationship or start some kind of a relationship in one way, shape, or form, or if they just now feel more comfortable opening up to you, and then to maybe a counselor or somebody or their spouse. Going back to even the story that you wrote in the book, I mean, this vulnerability of sharing this thing about my wife was about to leave me because I didn't get the help I needed, and here I am now, and I still struggle, but we're making it work, and I'm active, and I'm an active participant in my own management and recovery. I think is really important for people to hear, and just the work that you're doing with here as well. It's we don't always know all the people that we reach, but you've certainly flipped something that many people see as a negative or as a liability, and even though you struggle, as I do as well, at times, we're flipping it into an asset, which is important, which is why we do this podcast, why I'm talking to you, and why I just want to keep talking to people who are bawling out, man, who are doing these kinds of things. It's so important. It's one of the biggest and greatest and best gifts that we can give to another person, is turning suffering into like kind of saving a life, which is it's huge.
It's huge. It's massive. Like, and I know we're about out of time, but one of the things my wife says is that I understand pain and suffering like better than anybody she knows. And so like when there's somebody else in pain, like anywhere, like we'll be at a wedding and she's like, and she'll find me standing talking with like the dishwashers, because she's like, and like, like they might be crying, or like, there might be somebody upset or something like that. And she's like, and there you are, because like, that's where you find not comfort, but like, that's just where you find yourself. So for us, it's always been like, I find myself in places where, like I can help people with that, like give them and say, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, hey, listen, like I've been there, or I know what you're feeling, even if I haven't had the same experience. I know what it is to feel that kind of hurt, and it'll be all right. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to be a long process, but like, you'll be okay. Like, I promise. And like, honestly, I'm going through that right now. My grandmother died a week and a half ago, and my mom is like struggling through this, and like, just being able to say, hey mom, like, hey, I know what pain is, and you're going to feel pain for a while, but it'll, eventually, like, you'll just know that, grandma's okay. It's all right. Like, you're okay, and it'll be okay. It's not pleasant. It's not good, but it just is what it is. And I'm able to lead people through that just because I've been there.
Yeah. So much good stuff, man. And just as a male too, kind of speaking about this, I think is really, really important. And I find most in my experience, I see a lot of men in sort of the public space, like as speakers, and there's a lot of men who are vocal, but in sort of like quote unquote real life, there just isn't enough men talking about the experience they need to talk about so they can get the help they need, because there's still that, you're less than as a guy, as a man, if you disclose or if you show any sort of cracks in your visage or whatever, which is completely ridiculous. But, I had to come to that conclusion that that's not a good thing on my own as well. So, I mean, I've been there as well. Nate, man, I want to switch gears for a minute. I want to do this thing called the quick fire round. If you're cool with that. Yeah, I mean, because we have so many different sides to us, right? Like, and I think a lot of people will sometimes put us in a box, like he's just that guy who's sad all the time, or he's the nerdy egghead theology guy, or whatever people say. I don't know what they say, but we have so many different sides. So this is like the kind of like an inside the actor studio moment, or I don't know, Jimmy Fallon interview kind of a deal. So I'm going to ask you some questions, man. It's fun, no right answers, no wrong answers. We're just going to chill and have a good time. So are you cool with that?
I'm super cool with that. So this sounds like fun.
Man. All right, dude. Sounds good. So, Nate, what's your favorite word, man?
Oh, man. Whoa. Whoa. Like, whoa. Yeah, not the Joey Lawrence whoa, but I actually do that to my wife sometimes, and she laughs hysterically. But yeah, like, just like, wow. Whoa. Oh, my word.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It serves a lot of purposes. I'm a fan.
Yeah, it can do anything. So.
It's like, whoa, yo. So what's your least favorite word then?
Oh, man. I don't even know. Moist?
I need to actually keep a tally on that because you and maybe 10 other guests have said moist so far.
Well, and I was okay with moist,
great.
But a friend ruined it for me, and so now I just can't do it.
Oh, yeah. That is an exceptionally wet cake.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, hilarious. I must admit, though, I think my all-time favorite on this show, my least favorite word, is somebody said the word math. Oh, that's amazing. I don't know why.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah.
All right, excellent, because you're a musician. What's your favorite key signature to play in?
My favorite key signature? You know what? Probably my favorite key signature is C sharp minor.
What? It's got a lot of harmonics in it.
Yeah, that's why. It's got a lot of harmonics, and it's got a lot of there's a lot of possibilities there. So, and I know, and if I need to, I know the bass, I know the guitar chords for it too. So I can watch the guitar player and see where we're going at times if he's going or she is going somewhere different. So.
Oh, that's rad, man. That's really cool. I'm like, what's my favorite? I don't really care. I play piano a little bit, and I'm pretty bad at it, but here and there. Like my favorite is C, and with one hand.
No, that works. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm A minor. Why not? So next one. All right. So if somebody made a movie of your life, the Nate Crawford movie, I don't know, I can't think of the title. Maybe it's the title of your story, Chasing Butterflies. So somebody made that movie. Who would play the title role of Nate Crawford?
You know who I would love to, but has passed away, is River Phoenix.
Oh, that's a good one. Can we get his brother Joaquin?
I don't know that Joaquin would be right. Too weird.
Yeah. Agreed.
Somebody else. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, man. I like that too. He's this will be the second time somebody mentioned him, so he's going to get a lot of work out of this show.
He's got some scripts coming his way.
Yes, he does. Well, as soon as you write them, he is going to get so much work.
I'm sure, yeah.
I've got this 2-pager, Joseph. What do you think you can do with it?
Yeah. You can go right ahead and do whatever you need to.
Well, it wasn't like Brokeback Mountain like a 4-page poem, and they turned it into like a 2-hour movie or something. So,
was it really?
Worse has been done. What's that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They've.
Fair enough. I'm just thinking of more has been done with less, so we can rock that. Nate, man, who or what is your spirit animal?
It depends on the day. Maybe a rescue dog.
Ooh.
Beat up a little bit, but super loyal, and will get nasty if they need to.
I dig it, man. That's a lot of fun. Any specific breed?
No, because I've noticed that because we have a rescue dog and we have some friends with a rescue dog. Rescue dogs tend to be kind of they've been through it, and so the breed thing kind of goes out the window at times.
It does, yeah, it does. We have a rescue dog. I didn't name her. Her name's Fifi. So I feel like a big jackass when I walk over. What's your name? Like, oh man, Cheryl. No, I'm like, what's Fifi? It's Fifi. But she's this hilarious poodle terrier mix who everyone said was going to be a lap dog, and she was totally chill. And then when she came home, she became a maniac. But a good kind of maniac with a weak bladder. So
that's what happened to us. We have a poodle Schnauzer mix, and she's just she's just now getting hair back from we've had her for about 8 months, and she's just getting hair in places where it was torn out and stuff. But they're like, oh, she's gonna be super chill and stuff, and she is just runs circles around our house. So
that's awesome, man. That's really cool.
It was good.
So that's the end of the quickfire round, man. Now, question: what do you think, Nate? What do you think, man? The next maybe 6 months to a year looks like for you professionally, personally, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
I don't know. My kids will get older.
Yeah.
Which is which is the strangest thing because you're wasn't I just changing your diaper? And then, but my kids will get older, and one thing professionally, we're working on it's in conversation with people on the Here board, but I'm writing a book, and it's like a little meditation of like, you know, being like self-acceptance or those kinds of things, like, you know, understanding, you know, my self-denial, or what are some of the other things we're thinking of, failure, that kind of stuff. And then there's an exercise on the next page about like trying to like kind of tease that out just a little bit. Like so you have to do something, draw a picture, write down a list, something like that. And it's geared towards junior high and high school kids. And so that's the major professional thing that I'm working on. And I'm really, it took me a while to get into it, but the more that I do it, I'm excited, because I think it has the possibility to really help kids. And it also is supposed to be used in conjunction with, like a teacher or a faculty member or a staff member or something like that. And so, or a parent. And so then they're looking at these things and going, hey, you know, like, do you really feel like this? Or like, can we, you know, maybe we should talk to a counselor. Maybe we should talk to somebody, you know, like, and then it opens the way for a conversation, and not in a weird way, but like a real organic way. And so, so that's what I'm working on right now. And hopefully, that'll be out by the end of probably by the end of like May. So.
Very cool, man. Keep me posted. Keep us posted. That sounds really cool. And you know, you definitely got a literary background, so I'm sure you're gonna do great with it. Really awesome. And if folks want to get in touch with you in one way, shape, or form, say hello, support the foundation, connect on the book, whatever, is there a good way or a couple of ways that people can do that?
The best way is to go to Here, so it's HEREHEAR.org, and there's a newsletter, or there's like a sign up there for contact information and stuff like that, or they can always email me at nate@herehere.org. Those are the two best ways. And I love to talk to people, build a good network, and do good work, you know, wherever people want it. So
fantastic. Well, Nate, man, this has been great. I've really enjoyed hearing your voice and hearing your perspective and some of the fun facts about you, and just really everything, man. And I've learned some too, so I appreciate that. And just want to say it's been an honor and a treat to have you on the show today. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a blast. This has been a lot of fun. So I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it, and being part of the book and everything, and just getting hooked up with I'm Possible. Like, that's just a super cool deal. So this is exciting.
You've been listening to the I'm Possible Project Show with Joshua Rivedal and guest Nate Crawford. I love sharing stories and how to turn impossible into I'm Possible. If you want more inspirational stories, our second and third books are available right now. Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible, as well as Lemonade Stand. Both contain powerful stories of overcoming tremendous odds. When life gives you lemons, squeeze, add sugar, and pick up a copy of the I'm Possible Project. That's IAMPossibleProject.com/2/TWO or IAMPossibleProject.com/lemonade. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're more than a community. You're part of the I'm Possible family. Until next time, sending you lots of love.